All right. We just want to say welcome, you guys, to the CEO Spring Reset Experience. We are so glad that you're here. Whether you're joining us live or hello to our replay peeps, we're so glad that you're here. I want you to know you're exactly where you need to be if you want to see growth as you step into Q2. Because here's the truth. When you have clutter in your calendar, in your head, and on your desktop, it is only getting in the way of the results that you know that God has called you to create, which is why over the next 3 days, we're going to go from cluttered to clear in these three areas. So that way you can start showing up like the CEO of your business. So before we dive in, I've got three of us pinned here. So you may be like, who am I looking at? I want to make sure to introduce you to the other two experts who are joining us this week. And for those of you who are jumping in, we're so glad that you are here. We'll be dropping the link to the reset guide in the chat. So if you don't have that pulled up or printed out, please make sure you get that here in the first few minutes before we dive into it. But before we do that, let me go ahead and introduce you guys to my two cohorts in crime that we're going to be working together this week. So I'm excited about this. Laura Nizer is a business mindset coach. So Laura, yeah, wave at us. Tomorrow on day 2, she's going to help us reset our mindset so we can make the decisions we've been overthinking and likely putting off. Okay. How many people are overthinkers and put off things and, because it takes too much time and effort to make that decision. And we just keep going in circles. And yeah, so Laura's going to help us with that on day 2. And Tracy Hof is a professional organizer and productivity expert. Yay, Tracy. And on day 3, she's going to help us with a new kind of clutter we have to deal with in our modern age, right? Digital stuff, right? Like your desktop, like those emails that are coming in that are overflowing. How many of you would be willing, maybe I should say that, to even say how many tabs are open or how many unread emails you have right now? Like sometimes those numbers make our heart stop beating because we don't know what we're missing and how to find things when we need them. So Tracy's going to help us with that on day 3. And I'm Lissa Figgins. I'm a time multiplication strategist. And today I'm going to help you reset your calendar so you finally have the time you need to focus on what's actually going to move the needle in your business. Who's ever said, I wish I had more time to grow my business? Or when I find time, I would actually get to whatever that thing is, right? So we're going to be diving into that today. So I'm going to go ahead and move these guys. Let's see if I can, there we go. So that way you can see me since I'm the one who's going to be kind of going here, but these two gals are here and they'll be in the chat as well. Make sure you've got your guide. If you haven't yet grabbed it, I'll have them keep dropping the link for that. And our question coming in was, what is it that needs a little spring reset or refreshing in your world right now? Okay, so drop that in the chat if you haven't already yet, because 'tis the season, right? When there's something in us that just wants a little reset, right? The sun starts shining, the days start getting longer, it gets a little bit warmer outside. We want to open up things and start clearing out things. Anybody clearing out some closets right now? Or like tackling a garage? Or maybe you're getting the garden ready, your flower beds, things like that, right? We're trying to clear out the clutter and stuff that has built up over time because, well, it just feels good to create space, but it also allows us to feel like we can breathe, right? Or something can grow when it's not all covered up. So here is the thing. It's often easier to spot clutter in our homes than it is to recognize clutter in our business, right? And maybe even prior to all of the things that you've seen coming out about this experience, you've probably never thought about that maybe my business is cluttered and maybe that clutter is actually costing me some results, some time, some energy, things like that. Here's the thing about business clutter. It doesn't always look like clutter. Okay, here's what it might look like for you. It might look like a calendar that's full, but your business is not moving forward. Like, what am I doing all day long? Or decisions that, like we said, just keep spiraling in your head, right? And they stay undone and they keep you spinning. Or maybe all the open tabs and those overflowing inboxes that keep pulling at your attention. Here's the thing about clutter in business. You can't always see it, but likely you feel it, right? Who here can feel the effects of that clutter? Just like when the clutter starts piling up on your kitchen counter or, on the dining room table or wherever that place is in your home, you can feel it, right? And I don't know about you, but I can feel it. And I'm like, I got to clear this out. So here's how it shows up in our business. Oftentimes you are busy, but you're not productive. Your day may feel really full, but it's not as fruitful, right, as you would like it to be. That is because busyness is not the same as fruitfulness. I want you to remember that, okay? Busyness is not the same as fruitfulness. And in order for the fruit to grow, if you were a vine dresser, you would be clearing out all the dead branches, all the leaves, all the, extra stuff so that that fruit, right, can be on the vine that is getting everything that it needs. And that's what we're going to be doing on this 3 days together. We are not here, you guys, to add more to your plate. Okay, who is glad to hear that? We're not going to add more to your plate. Actually, what we're going to do over the next 3 days is help you clear what's getting in the way. Okay, and we're going to walk you through a very specific way that we're doing that. So this is going to shift how you are experiencing things in your business, opening up your time, opening up your mind to make those decisions, opening up your opportunity to find the things you need when you sit down to do your work. At the end of our 3 days together, we want you to have more space in your calendar. We want you to have more clarity in your decisions. We want you to have more focus when you sit down to work, which means you're going to be experiencing more purpose, more productivity, more profit, more peace. I would love to hear in the chats, which of those P's would you love more of in your life? Is it purpose, productivity, profit, or peace? Drop that in the chat. And let's see what's kind of coming up more often. I love that. Focus on what's important and letting go of distractions. Yes, and noticing what they are. That's so key, Rochelle. And I love that you said that because we're going to start identifying some distractions today that we may not be paying attention to that. And each day, we're going to go through this process of diagnose. We're going to look at what's really happening in your calendar, in your mind, or in on your digital spaces. Then we're going to declutter. We're going to clear out some of the things that are getting in the way. But we're not just going to declutter and hope it stays that way, right? Because we all know what happens when you clear out the space. It's very easy for it to be a magnet for all that same stuff to come right back in. That's why we're going to go to the next step, which is decide. We are going to step up and lead that area like a CEO, okay? A CEO. And just so you guys know, if you're new in my world, I've redefined CEO as a Christ-empowered operator. If God called you to this business, then we are intentional and faithful in the way that we are stewarding it to grow it, right? And the last step is going to be design. This week, each day, you're going to build a simple plan for that area and start putting it into action so that you can start seeing results right away. Okay, so that we're not actually, I'm glad you love that CEO. Yeah, it's a whole different way to show up in your business when you're like, it's not all on me, and yet I get to partner with the Lord to do this thing, right? So we're not going to be talking about change and clearing some space this week. We're actually going to start doing it. Okay, so we'll be meeting each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, live at 1 o'clock Central Time. If you are able to make it live, this is always going to be the way to get the most value, the way that you're going to be most engaged. We all know what happens with replays. A lot of times we're distracted and we're watching them, or we say we're going to get to them, but we don't. So make it a point to be here live if you can. And if not, it's okay, because each afternoon we will be sending out the replay. And along with the replay, you want to make sure you check your inboxes, even if you're on live. Inside that replay email is going to be a bonus implementation tool from that day's expert. Okay, a bonus implementation tool, if I can say the word, is going to be coming with your replay. So make sure you go and find that email, and I'll get them out as soon as I can after we're done each day. So that way, not only do you have kind of a recap of what we did, a way to go back and listen again, but you also have this extra tool that can help you. And we have actually got a community where we're having some conversation and connection outside of our time here. So I run a community called the Redeem Her Time community. So we're going to drop the link to that. So Tracy, if you can drop the link to that. If you have not joined yet as a member, at least save this link. It also will be in the replay email as well. But this is where this week we're sharing our ahas. We're celebrating our wins, whether they're little or big, and we're declaring our commitments. Because you guys, it's one thing to think about it. It's one thing to write it down and you look at it, but it's another thing when you start sharing it with other people and then asking for accountability. Okay. So that over inside the Redeem Her Time community is where we can do that. And guess what? While you're there, I give you guys permission and direction to talk about you and your business and what you're promoting any day of the week. Hello, who is tired of all those Facebook business groups that you get in trouble if you talk about your business on the wrong day of the week at the wrong time? Not in my world. If God calls you to it, we want you talking about it. I think women need to talk more about what they're doing and what they're offering and all of that. So if you're not a member yet, redeemhertime.com/community. If you're already a member, I made it easy for you. Just drop that community off and put member, redeemhertime.com/member. That'll take you right into the community. Okay. All right. We're going to encourage you guys as we're getting started today. Number one, have your guide with you. So if you don't have that yet, Tracy's dropping the link periodically. You're going to want that pulled up if you can. If not, it's not the end of the world. It's okay. And I also want to encourage you, turn the ringer off. Maybe even flip the phone over so you don't see the little, notifications popping up. Close some of the extra tabs. Tracy's going to teach us how we don't have to stress out when we close a tab because we think we might not know how to get back to it. We'll get to that on day 3. But turn off whatever you can so that we can be fully present to what it is that we're doing over the next 3 days. Okay? Because this is only going to work if you are here and you are doing this with us. And I want to let you guys know that you don't have to get this perfect coming out of these 3 days. You might be like, my calendar is a wreck, or there's a rat's nest going on up here, or wow, if you looked at my desktop, you'd be like shocked. Here's what we want to tell you guys, okay? You don't have to get it perfect coming out of these 3 days, okay? We're going to get you started. You're going to be thinking differently. You're already going to start doing differently. But then we're also going to give you an opportunity to join the 3 of us in about a week and a half. Actually, it's almost 2 weeks now, I guess, on April 21st, where we are going to not learn more that we need to be doing. We're going to come back to what you are learning over the next 3 days, what you'll be working on over the next couple of weeks. We're going to refine it. We're going to simplify it. We're going to personalize it for you so that way you are locking it in. How many of you have cleaned out that closet and you had to do it again? How many of you have cleaned out the drawer, right? You cleaned up your desktop. Tracy, don't look at mine right now because I was heads down getting all this stuff ready. So I know it needs some attention, but you have to do it again, right? And it's like, wow, if I could just keep it clean, it'd be really nice. That's what we're going to do on the Lock It In session, which is happening on April 21st. We're going to give you guys a special opportunity to join us for just $27 when you grab a spot by this Friday, which is, what is that? The 10th of April. Okay. So we'll be dropping that link as we go throughout each of our sessions. It'll be on the replay. It'll be over inside the community. But that's for those of you who are like, I don't want this to just be a one-time reset that I have to go back and do again. I really want this to be how I operate as a CEO. Okay. All right. So enough housekeeping stuff. We're diving into our calendar today. Okay. So I'm going to ask you guys a question in the chat. Let me copy my options for you here. I want you to vote A, B, or C, okay, about your calendar. Just so you know, there is no shame in any of it because we probably could say all the above, but I want you to pick one, which is closest to you right now. So when you think about your calendar, which one of these feels most true? Is it A, I don't have enough time? Is it B, I have time, but it's not being used well? Or is it C, I'm not even sure where my time is going? Right? Is it A, B, or C? I don't have enough time. I have time, but it's not being used well, or I'm not even sure where my time is going. Kevin is Melissa, or Melissa is Kevin. So you're letting us know so we don't think some guy found his way in here. I love it. I love it. Okay, I see a lot of B's. Okay, if you're in my world, one of my signature phrases is you have time. So you're like, I can't say A because Lissa's going to say that's not true. But that I'm not using it well is probably where a lot of us are. And that also leads to why I feel sometimes I don't even know where my time went. I was busy all day long, but I don't really have a whole lot to show for it. Okay. So most women think the problem outside of here is that they don't have enough time. But what we're going to see is you do have time. But as CEOs, we have to be intentional. We have to be strategic. We have to be on purpose about really looking at how are we filling that time. And not only how are we filling it, but what results is it producing? Because what good would it do to fill up a bunch of time with stuff that looked good? It looked productive. It looked like what everybody else on the internet is doing, but it's not actually producing results like real live sales, right? And clients and customers and people that are members of your community or coming into your ministry or whatever it is that you're building. Okay, so we want to be looking at what's filling my time and what result is it producing. I call that ROTI, R-O-T-I, return on time invested. We can spend a lot of time, but if it's not producing anything, then it's really just wasting that time, right? Think about this. We do this with our finances all the time, right? Before you make a financial, decision, you're probably thinking about, do I have the money? And what is this going to give me in return? Do I get a great cup of coffee? Okay, then I decide, is it worth it or not, right? And if you're doing a financial investment, you're going to be looking at what kind of percentage am I getting back? How is this growing my assets? The problem is when it comes to our time, which I believe is our most valuable asset, we are not asking those questions. We're reacting all day long. If you were reactive like that with your money, you wouldn't have much in your bank account and you wouldn't have a lot to show for it. So as CEOs, we've got to put on that CEO hat and say, my time is my most valuable asset. I need to pay attention to what is filling it and what results it's producing. Okay? My time and my ROTI. So I want you to remember those two terms as we're going. Okay? And as we dive into this first section, I want you to pinky promise no more trying to get better at managing your time. Okay? Manage is literally a way that we're trying to keep up with the clock or keep time from getting away from us. It's exhausting. It's the kind of thing we feel like keeps getting, undone and we're not getting anywhere. I want us to start going, okay, I am here to steward time. A steward thinks strategically about where they are investing their time so they are putting it in places that's going to produce growth, that's going to create expansion, right? If we only have 24 hours, we need to be wise users of what that time looks like. And everything that I teach comes from Ephesians 5:15-16, which says, look carefully, we have to pay attention how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise. So we can go one way or the other, redeeming the time or making the best use of it, because these are difficult days. Anyone, amen, in the chat? You had some difficult days, a lot of things pulling at your time and attention lately? Okay, then we are going to jump into our workbook. And step number 1 today, which is diagnosing the problem in our calendar, okay? What is really going on with your time? Because here's the thing, whether it's in your calendar, whether it's the thoughts that are going up here, or whether it's all the clutter that's on the screen in front of you, if you don't know, if you can't see it, you can't change it, right? And like we just said, time is that one resource that we're not really paying a lot of attention to where it's going. That's what I call living by default. But when you approach it like a valuable asset, you start living by design because you're making decisions, CEO decisions, about where you're investing it and where you're not. Okay? Now, here's the truth. We can't change the amount of time you have, right? Every single one of us got 24 hours this morning, and until the Lord comes back, we're going to keep getting 24 hours, right? So that's why the key is not complaining about how much time you don't have, because as long as you're chasing the time you don't think you have, you're not going to do anything with the time you do, okay? We want to look at how you're filling it and what kind of result it's producing, okay? I guarantee some of what's in your day matters, but a lot of it is probably just taking up space. Would you agree? Okay? I like to think of it this way. If you're in my world, you know this, right? Our time gets filled with oranges and Skittles, okay? Oranges are the things that actually add value. Think about what's in this orange, right? Nutrients, fiber, a lot of juice and stuff in here, right? When I consume this, it is going to actually move my health forward, right? An orange is a thing that adds value. The things that are moving your life or your business forward, okay? The ROTI, right, that we're looking for. But if I'm filling up with Skittles, what do we know about a Skittle? I mean, this is artificial everything. This is artificial colors, flavors, a bunch of sugar. Sure, it looks fruity and fun, but it's really taking up time and energy, and it's probably not going to take my health in the right direction, right? And it's not really going to lead to anything meaningful other than it felt good in the moment. Okay, so I want you to remember, oranges are what's moving you forward. This is the multiplying the ROTI. Skittles is just the consuming time. Okay? So we are going to start looking at what are the oranges and what are the Skittles for you? Okay? And here's the thing I want to just kind of make sure that we're thinking about. How many of you do something else in life besides run a business? Anybody? Anybody? A wife? A mom? A grandma? A friend? A caretaker? Right? You run a ministry at church, or you volunteer for something, or you're taking care of your home. Like I want you thinking about, I don't just do business in a vacuum. I do have lots of roles and responsibilities. Okay? And so we're going to be identifying here, what are some oranges in this season that I'm in? And what are some things that right now are Skittles? And here's something that actually came out in a training I did recently. Somebody had an aha moment. She's like, wait, right now this is a Skittle. But when I was in a different season of my life, that actually wasn't a Skittle. So it might look a little bit different for us. So let me give you a couple examples of what this might look like, and then we're going to get some things down on paper, okay? So oranges, again, remember, it's producing results, ROTI. It's actually moving you forward. This might be like having a meaningful conversation with a client, or working on something that's going to bring in revenue, or spending intentional present time with your family. That's important too. Or yes, even investing time to care for your personal needs. That should be an orange. Skittles might be things like checking my inboxes or news feeds over and over all day long. Anybody? Or how about saying yes to too many things because other people need me? Or tweaking things that don't really move the needle, but I just feel it feels good to do this and check a box. Here's the thing I want you to think about as we're going into this. When your life is filled with Skittles, you won't have time or space for the oranges, and you won't be showing up like a CEO. Okay? So here's where we're going to make this real. And I want you to go to step 1 on day 1 in your guide. Okay, and I'm going to give you about 2 minutes here just to start this thinking. From now on, you're going to start thinking in terms of Skittles and oranges. And you're going to be like, wait, is that an orange or a Skittle? Okay, so right now I want you to go, okay, what are like 3 to 5 oranges, things that are priorities right now in this season that are actually producing fruit? That is what I'm supposed to be focusing on. That is what I'm growing. They don't all have to be business related. You can have some life things in there too, because those things matter. And then I want you to jot down 3 to 5 things that are more in the Skittle category. They're probably taking up your time, but not really producing results. Okay? So here's the thing. Don't overthink it. Chances are you already know what they are. It might be a little scary to write it down because that means you have to do something about it, but that's the point. Okay? So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. What are some oranges right now? Some things that like I know are moving the ball down the field, whether in the area of your faith, a relationship, your health, your business, even, some things around your home. And what are some things that are Skittles right now? What's getting your time? That actually makes you say at the end of the day, what did I get done today? How much time did I spend on my phone? There's one. If you don't have your phone written down, you're probably not being honest. I think I just saw somebody come in. So if you're wondering why we're all looking down, Tracy, if you don't mind putting the guide in the chat, just to make sure that everybody's got that when they come in a little bit later. We are starting to identify oranges and Skittles. What are things that are getting our time that are producing results in a good way that we want to go? And what are the things that are just maybe taking up time or taking us in the other direction? No worries, it's fine. I'm so glad you came. Just want to make sure you knew what we were doing if it was quiet for a minute and you're not like, what are they? Why is everybody just sitting here? What are the things that when you do them, they're moving things forward in that area? Those are oranges. And then the things that you're like, probably doesn't really matter. What did I actually get done today? Those are probably more in the Skittle category. And I'm going to be curious if you're willing to drop in the chat, because I would love to just kind of hear. Is it easier to see the oranges or is it easier to see the Skittles? Or do you feel like you've got more oranges that are obvious or way more Skittles that are obvious? So drop oranges or Skittles in the chat. Would love to kind of see what's coming up. The Skittles, okay? Here's a great test for the Skittles. Will this matter a week from now, a day from now, or even like 5 minutes from now? Right? Sometimes in the minute, it feels like, oh, I have to go look this up. And believe me, I'm the queen of this. I'll be like, oh, I need to go look up whatever this random thing is. And then, of course, we know how that rabbit trail goes. So, okay, a bit of both. Okay. Oranges. Ooh, because it's what I stress over not doing. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. We don't want stress around it, but I want you noticing, oh, wait, this is an orange. That should actually make me like, how can I make sure that I'm making time for it? Okay. Because again, remember, we can't change the amount of time you have. Okay. So pretend that this jar is your 24 hours in a day. If you let, half that time fill up with Skittles, there's not going to be room for the orange. I mean, this orange wouldn't fit in anyway. So I didn't have an orange that was small enough to fit in my jar to this time. But, so we have to make sure that we're going, okay, what am I letting fill this up? There can be some Skittles. If you guys have seen me do my illustration, I do this one where I have a big jar and I've got 8 oranges and a whole thing of Skittles. When you put the Skittles in first, guess what? There's not room for more than like 2 or 3 oranges. But when you put the oranges in first, every single Skittle also fits in. It's crazy. It's called order determines capacity. I'm going to teach you about that in our bonus resource today. Okay. But I want you right now, coming out of this first section, it's not about having more time. It's about what I'm intentionally or unintentionally filling my time with. Because guess what? There's not been a minute of your life that didn't fill with something, right? Either you decided or someone or something else decided for you. Either you tell your time where to go or somebody else does, right? And you wonder where it went. Okay. So I want you guys to start thinking in terms of oranges and Skittles. Okay, that's just my fun way of doing river rocks and pebbles. If you've heard it that way, I like oranges and Skittles a whole lot better. Okay, so start paying attention to what things am I letting fill my day. Okay, now let's start going into the second section, which is, okay, now we're going to do a little decluttering. And when we were looking at like Skittles and oranges in general, I had you kind of thinking big picture, like, kind of life and business. But now we're going to kind of narrow it in. I want you to pretend that you have just sat down to work. Okay. What typically happens when you sit down in your office or open up your laptop? How many of you, the Skittles follow you, right? Because this is where most of us get stuck. In fact, this is what's so perfect is tomorrow, Laura's going to help us with a Skittle that gets in, which is the overthinking, right? And all of that. And then Tracy's going to help us with the Skittle on Wednesday. That's about all the clutter that's on our screen. No wonder we can't stay focused on anything because hello, squirrel, like there's so many things to chase. Okay. So if you have Skittles chasing you, the Skittle is sitting on the desk. Yes, I actually keep my Skittle right here. So I'm like literally thinking about it. So I have to do that. Okay. But how many of you sit down to work, you like actually made the time, right? You actually got in the chair or wherever that is. You're ready to focus. And then you check your email real quick, or you open a few tabs and you start one thing and you switch to something else. And before you know it, like the time is gone and the family's coming home and you got to get dinner on the oven because it's time to get to church or whatever. Anybody? And you're like, oh man, so much for that time. Okay. It's not that you don't have time to build your business. We already said you have time and your business should be one of your oranges. If you're in business, this should be an orange. Okay. It's just that your time is often filled with Skittles that are getting in the way of that orange. Okay. And again, we're talking about, this is not just the clutter that you can see. Like, yes, you may have a disorganized desk or a disorganized laptop or something like that, but it's also the stuff that's going on in here. Okay. And so we're going to start identifying, somebody said this earlier, distractions. Okay. Does anyone here have shiny object syndrome or squirrel brain when you sit down to work? Right? Because there's a lot of stuff going on that like wants to suck our time and attention. So external distractions are just that, things outside of you. This could be like notifications on your phone. I call them rings, dings, and pings. This can be the emails and the messages that are coming in from the outside. This could be, it could literally be the clutter all over your desk. It could be the clutter in the room that you're in that just distracts you when you're sitting there. This could be interruptions. How many of you go in your office and all of a sudden everybody suddenly needs you and they're knocking on the door or they're opening the door or they're calling you or they're messaging you, right? Those are external distractions. Okay, we're going to start writing them down here in just a minute. Internal distractions are the things going on in here. Okay, which is again what Laura is really going to dial in tomorrow. Overthinking what to do first or second guessing your decisions. Or hello, anybody? I have this conversation with my CEOs all the time. Avoiding what actually matters because it feels easier to do the fun thing or check the box thing. Or like, what about just being scattered or unsure? Right? Here's the thing. Most people think my biggest problem is everything out here. Guess what, ladies? How many of you have found to be true? It's actually really the bigger distraction is what's going on in here and right here, the head and the heart, right? And those distractions, which end up being clutter, doesn't just take up space on our desk or on our desktop or in our head or in our calendar. It also steals our focus and it slows our decisions and it keeps us from actually producing results. And that's when we sit down for a few hours to work before the family needs us. And instead of moving something forward, we are switching or searching or second guessing the whole time. Okay. As CEOs, we want to make sure we're able to see these distractions so that we can start doing something about them. Okay, because we want to get a good ROTI out of our time. When we sit down, we want to get a good ROTI out of our time that we are sitting down to work on this. Okay, so let's make this real for you. So on step 2, we're on the day 1 page of your spring reset guide. I want you to think about what are some external things that are distracting me from CEO level work. Like even picture yourself. When I sit down, this is what tends to happen. These are some of the outside things that are coming up. It could be the laundry, like dinger going off. That's probably shouldn't start it right before you're going to sit down if you're going to be distracted by it. But what are the outside things that are stealing your time and attention away? And then the scary part, what are some of those internal things? What starts happening up here that's keeping you from actually doing that thing in front of you? When you sit down to work, what's pulling you off track? Whether it's coming from outside of you or inside of you. I'll give you a minute or two to write a few things down because again, we have to notice before we can do something. I'm going to teach you what to do with it. If you're not sure what to write, ask yourself, what do I tend to do instead of the thing that I said I was going to do when I sit down to work? Maybe it's what's keeping you even from getting in your office or, in front of your laptop or your computer or whatever it is. But maybe it's actually happening when you are in that place. and try and see if you can identify, is this something coming from outside of me or is this something coming from inside of me? And here's how I love to teach people what to do with distractions. Here's why it's so important that you start noticing them and naming them, because then we can reframe them or remove them. Okay? So I always love using this little illustration. How many of you have ever been through a fun house? I'm not talking scary haunted house. I don't do those. Okay? I'm just talking like a fun house where like something pops up, right? The first time you go through the fun house and that thing pops up, you're like, ah, right? And you like maybe jump back or whatever, right? And then you decide, oh, that was kind of fun. Or the kids want you to go through again, or the grandkids. So you're like, okay, I can do this. And then you know that thing is going to be coming around the corner. And so this time it doesn't like throw you back, but maybe you just kind of like jump, right? But you kind of knew it was coming. So then you weren't quite so thrown off by it. And then by the third time you go through, you're like, I already know where that is. I already know it's coming and I'm just going to walk right past it and it's not even going to faze me. Okay? Why did that change? Even though, I mean, that jumpy thing, the distraction didn't change. What changed was your awareness of it, right? So this is what we want to start doing. I want you starting to notice as a CEO, what is tending to pull me off track? What's tending to distract my time and send me in a different direction when I do sit down to do my work, right? Because remember, it's not just about having the time to be in your office. It's then going to be about what kind of results am I producing with that time, okay? But we have to start noticing those things, naming it. That's the first step, right? Got to be able to say, yep, I know this is for me, something that typically comes up. And then guess what? Sometimes you can completely eliminate it, right? So if there is something that you can eliminate right now, I want you to put an E next to it. So maybe it's something like, getting a phone call in the middle of a work block. Well, guess what? We just turn the ringer off and put the phone in the other room or turn it upside down. Like there are ways to do that, right? So is there something you can eliminate? Is there something you can minimize? So maybe it's that, you're turning, the volume down, or maybe you are like, I'm only going to check this, before I start working and then after I start working. So it still has an opportunity to come in, but I'm going to minimize the impact it has on me. Right? So put an M next to something. You're like, okay, this is something that I could minimize. So can I eliminate it or can I minimize it? Sometimes there are certain things that we can't fully turn off, whether it's external or internal. A lot of those internal ones, and I love the fact that Laura's going to help us go deeper on this tomorrow, like we can turn those off. And there are ways that when you are organized, like Tracy's going to teach us on Wednesday, that you can really minimize some of that distraction that's going on just because you're like totally disorganized on your digital spaces. Okay, but I want you thinking about, number one, naming those distractions. Okay, I'm seeing this thing. How often is this popping up? Right? If it's popping up frequently, or with some kind of regularity, then we need to pay attention to it and say, okay, what is this costing me in time and focus and results? And what do I need to do about it? Is there a way I can eliminate this? Or is there a way I can minimize this? And there's so many different layers we can go through, and that's some of what we're going to work through on that implementation session, the lock it in session on the 21st, is that we're going to be able to kind of personalize that for you and go, okay, here's something that's typically distracting me. And we can come up with a plan around how we can make sure that we are either eliminating or minimizing the impact of that distraction. But the first step I want you guys to do is to start noticing. Because if you don't notice them, right, you're just going to keep giving your time away to these distractions, whether they're internal, whether they're external, and then wondering, why do I feel like I'm not getting anywhere in my business? Okay, so our first step is always going to be noticing. And I'm going to ask you to make a commitment right now. You might see this at the very bottom there. And that is to circle one of them that you are going to intentionally, not just name this week, you're going to eliminate or minimize this week. And I would love to hear, this is one of those things that'll be great to talk about in the community. What is one of those distractions? It's probably a Skittle, right? Because Skittles fall under those distractions. Or it may be something that like during my work time is a Skittle, right? And so maybe it's a distraction to my work time, but it lives in another part of my day, which is what I'm going to teach you in your bonus resource today, the CEO Day Framework. Where do those other things go? So that way my time is clear for when it's time to work, and those things don't become a distraction. Sometimes distractions aren't a bad thing, it's just not at the right time. That's why one of the signature questions I teach you to ask is, what is it time for? Right? So it may be that when you're sitting down to work, that thing is a distraction. But at a different time in your day or week, that thing is completely appropriate. In fact, it could be the most important thing you need to be doing. right? But as CEOs, we have to know the answer to the question, what is it time for? Okay. And this is why we are inviting you guys to come back on the 21st to grab a spot to join us, because we're going to get clarity first, right? We're going to start seeing oranges and Skittles. We're going to start seeing the distractions, internal and external. But this is the part that most people don't realize. It's easy to say that when I'm on a Zoom, right? And then what's going to happen as soon as you get off today? Ring, ding, ping, and everything's going to start coming at you, and you're going to feel like, right? So just because you see it clearly right now, and you're going to start to see it more clearly as you're thinking in these terms of oranges and Skittles, internal and external distractions, it doesn't automatically mean that it changes everything in real life, right? Because yes, without a plan and support, the same distractions are just going to be there tomorrow and the next day and the next thing. So that's one of those things we're going to be addressing in that Lock It In session. Tracy just dropped the link to that. Like we said earlier, it's $27 if you grab a ticket by Friday. So make sure that you do that before it goes up to $47 after that. Okay, so you've got one circle that's costing you some time right now, one that's maybe having an impact on your CEO time. This is one I want you to commit to addressing this week. Okay, let's flip to the back page. We've diagnosed, we've decluttered. Okay, so now we've figured out, okay, where is my time really going? What are some things that are getting in the way, and how do I start noticing it and clearing it? Just like the clutter on your dining room table or your kitchen counter. If you don't notice it, you're not going to do anything about it, right? And then figure out where it's going to go. Now we want to start making some CEO decisions. And so step 3 is to decide, when are my CEO operating hours? Okay, this is one mistake that I see so many business owners make who don't have a brick and mortar. Does anyone here, drop in the chat if you have a brick and mortar business, like you actually show up to, some kind of a building where there is a, we are open sign hanging on the front. Anybody working in that? Okay, Annette's got that. She's got a spa that she does and some other, no, it's not just spa stuff. She's got like red light, and she's got her, why am I blanking, Annette? You can drop in the chat what it is. Okay. She's also got some online stuff that she's working on. Anybody else? A wellness center, thank you. Here's the thing. So many, especially if you do mostly digital things, right? Like you could be working all the time or none of the time. Anybody ever find that? I was just thinking when I was sitting outside for a few minutes before we came on today, when I was homeschooling my kids, I remember a friend of mine saying to me very seriously, Lissa, if you are going to homeschool your kids, you have to be home. And like, it really is kind of funny that she would have to tell me that, but it was like, there were so many great things we could go and do. And, then we weren't getting to like the math book and the, the reading curriculum and whatever, because we were out doing field trips. And yes, that was a part of homeschooling, right? It wasn't that it was a waste of time, but if I actually wanted to like get through the curriculum that I needed to get through, we actually had to be, in the house with a book in hand doing the thing. Okay. So yeah, I love Emmy as working towards an in-person type thing. So we need to put on that hat of like, okay, if I had a brick and mortar business, so one of my clients owns a boutique in the town that we live in, right? If she doesn't put that sign on the front door to let her clients know, or customers know, when she's open and when she's not, people are going to get really frustrated, knocking on the door and her never being there, right? And she's not going to know when she's showing up, right? And her family's not going to know when is mom working and when is mom not. But how many of us, it just feels like it all gets thrown in the same pot especially if you're working from home. Anybody with me? It's like all in the same pot, right? And I can do it, and I can do this, and I can do all these things, and then it feels like all these other things start creeping in on that time. Okay? So we have to make some decisions because we don't get more time, and you don't need more time anyway. That's not the problem. You'd probably fill it the same way you already are, right? We have to define that time. Okay? So what we're going to do then is we are going to look at when are you going to decide that you are open for business. Okay, because once you decide on those hours, then we're going to talk about how you protect them. Okay, and that's what's going to help you increase your time. So step 3 is to decide. Okay, the first thing I want you to do in this one is I want you to write down the total number of weekly hours. I'll tell you what the boxes are in a minute. I know this is under the box, but just go with me. The total number of weekly hours that you would like to commit to working your business a week. Now, I just want to say right now, this is in no way saying you have to be working 20 hours a week or 30 hours a week or whatever it is, okay? I want you to think about what can you commit to and what will you commit to that would fit in the season of life you're in. Okay, we're probably the gamut here. Some of you still have kids at home that you're, taxi mom and stuff like that. Some of you, maybe like me, your kids are all grown out of the house and far away, so your time's going to look different. Right? If you're married or not married, if you've got other, a side business on top of work that you do, if you've got ministry that you lead, So I want you to think about what would feel really good and sustainable that you could work. Okay, so yes, Monica, I love that you're sharing this, that my CE hours for my side business are worked around my work and family. Yes, and if we don't define them, it's very easy for those things them to not happen. So Monica, I want you to think about how many hours per week do you think reasonably you could work, commit to working. You can always do more if you want, right? But like, this is my baseline. What is that total number of hours per week? What does this season allow me to do? Then the 3 boxes, here's what they are for, is what could this look like? Okay, these are just going to be your options. Okay, so say for example, you want to work 20 hours a week. Okay, box number 1, you might write, okay, 10 hours times 2 days a week. And then maybe in box 2, you're like, well, or I could break it down 5 hours, 4 days a week. And then box 3, you're like, okay, I could work 4 hours, 5 days a week. Okay, and again, it doesn't have to be pretty even Steven. I was a math teacher, so I like my factors, factor pairs and stuff like that. Maybe it's a different combination of them where you're like, these 2 days I put in more time and then I have a couple hours on this day. So don't overthink it right now, but just I want you to kind of take that number of how many hours you want to work a week. I would actually love to hear in the chat. How many hours a week do you feel like you could reasonably commit to and is going to be enough to really move things forward? And again, based on what level of business you're at, that's also going to be a factor there. So if you put in 10 and somebody else puts in 25, don't feel bad. They're in a different season of life or a different season of business. It's okay. And here's the thing. It's about making the most out of that time, not just having the most time, right? So 10 to 15 hours, 20 hours, okay? And then I want you to break that down to 3 different ways that this could look in your week. We're not making decisions yet. We'll get to that in just a second. What could this look like? Okay, 15 hours, 30 to 40 hours. Yeah, okay, can we just be honest? How many of us are okay, well, there's 2 different ends of the spectrum, and it's up to you if you want to share or not, but I at least want you to think about this. Am I working right now, am I actually giving way less time to my business than I need to? Or am I on I am working all the time, and I really need to learn how to shut this thing down sooner because it's creeping into my evening and my weekends and all the things, okay? Now, I'm in a season right now where I've had a lot of things going on, so I have started creeping a little bit more towards that, especially getting ready for this. But I want to pull back to, okay, here's what my commitment is. I want you kind of thinking about which end of the spectrum am I on? Am I working more than I want to? Thank you for sharing with us. I love it. Or do I know I'm not getting around to the work nearly enough? Whichever spectrum you're on, the first decision to make is how many hours a week and what could that look like? Okay, so do you have a couple of options kind of mapped in front of you? There's no right or wrong, right? But here's the thing. We have to make a decision around, okay, what do I think is going to work best in this season? Now, that being said, for those of you who have kids still under your roof, I do understand that in the next 2-ish months, they're all of a sudden going to be around a whole lot more and you're going to have to probably rethink this. So just go with what's going to work for April, May, and whatever part of June until they get out of school, unless you're out in May. What I'm in right now. Right? And then I would also say before you head into that summer season, then that's going to be a great time to reevaluate that too, right? What does my hours look like in the summer? Okay. And it's okay if you said, I want to work 30 hours a week and you're looking at this going, I can't make this work. Maybe you just lower the amount of hours that you're committed to. Because like I said, you can always do more. Oh, you homeschool. Yeah. So then it doesn't change, but maybe you're more in a summer vacation. Sometimes, summer looks different even as homeschoolers. Okay. But I then want you to go, okay, of these 3 options, which one do I like best? And then I want you to write in those blanks, what are my working days? So write down the days, number of days you're working and what those days are. And then what are how many hours am I doing per day? What will that look like? How many days am I working? And if it's not, what specific days are those? One of my really good friends, her husband is a pastor. So Mondays is their family day because it's after, he's done with the stuff on Sunday. And so she then, does her homeschool and her business stuff Tuesday through Saturday is her Monday through Friday, right? So I want you to know, what is that for you? How many days are you working? And what days would those be? And then about how many hours a day would you be doing that? Some of you might like to work in bigger chunks. Is anybody here I'm a chunk girl? I want to be able to have Monday and Friday off so I can work longer on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Some people, based on maybe your husband's schedule or grandkids' schedule or things like that, you're I would rather put in, a little bit more time on a couple of days than feel like I have to be doing something every day. And some of you might be the other way. You might be like, I can't, my brain turns into mush after X number of hours. And so I have to break it down over more days. So either way is okay. I just want you to make that CEO decision about what are my hours going to be and what's sustainable in this season. Okay, I love it. Weekdays, 2 to 3 hours a day, okay, which works great because you're, like you said, Amy, you're homeschooling, so it's going to give you time for school and time for work. This is why you guys are going to want to make sure you check the email that I will be sending out after we're done today. The CEO Day framework is going to show you how to make sure that life fills in around those hours. Because I think we've all been told this. When I first started in business, I started network marketing, and I remember one of the selling points was you can work this in the nooks and crannies of your day, which, like, in theory sounds really good. Except, you know what that was in reality? At least for me, I was never not working in my head, and I was always distracted trying to get things in here and there, and I wasn't ever really focused on anything, whether it was my business or my family, because I was literally, everything was just crossing paths all the time. And so for me, I had to like go, okay, this is time when I am focused on just my kids, and I'm not going to be checking my email. I'm not going to be answering a text. I'm not going to be whatever this is. And this is the time when I'm focused on business stuff. And we'll talk about what you need to do before you do that to help your family understand that before you go in there. Okay, but you've got to make this decision first. How many hours a day and how many days a week? What do I think this is going to look like? I'm curious, have you made this kind of decision before? I think we kind of just say, I'm building a business. I'm working a business, and I hope that I give it enough time to get somewhere. But I'm not really ever paying attention to how much time I'm giving it, how consistently I'm giving it that much time, and then if that's even producing the results. Or you may be looking at your bank account and being like, how come I'm not making any money in my business? Well, maybe you need to look in your calendar and say, how come I'm not really giving this consistent time? And then once you've written that down, number of the working days and the number of hours per day, I want you to think and start now I want you to start saying, right, CEO hat, these are the hours when I operate as a CEO. But guess what? CEOs also get to make decisions that if there's a day that you get a park invitation and you really want to go, do it, right? Or you get an invitation to go to lunch with somebody and that just the Lord is like, you need to go spend some time with this person, do it. So this is not the beauty of not having to go to a brick and mortar is that you can make some adjustments. But that's probably the exception more than the normal. The problem is a lot of us treat our business hours more like it's an exception when I do have consistency with them. Okay? Oh, interesting. Carolyn, thank you for sharing that. I was told wisely to do this when I started, but I didn't stick with it. And things started to creep back in. Girl, that's why we're doing this, right? We're noticing the problem. We're making a decision around the problem. Now we're about to make a plan because you're right. Life starts interruptions creep in and life starts coming in, right? And if we don't protect it, so we're going to get to here in this last part, that CEO time doesn't actually happen or it doesn't produce results. Okay? That's why, right, we're zeroing in on your business hours, your CEO hours of operation. But in that guide you're going to get in your email, it's going to help you kind of frame the rest of your day. So those things have a place too. And then I don't have to feel guilty when I'm working that I'm not doing this other thing because it already has a place if it's an orange and if it matters, and vice versa. Because you have to know what it's time for. And sometimes it has to be time to get some work done. And sometimes it has to be time to close it down, whether your to-do list is done or not. Okay, so right now, this is not, I'm working unless it's like you have a timeline, right? And it has to be done. Okay, sometimes that happens, but like this is when I'm done. And guess what? Just like in college when there was a due date on something, you figured out a way to get it done by the due date, right? So like if you're like, I'm closing my computer at 4:00, right? You will start learning how to make that time happen. And that's actually what I love helping women do is what do we do with that time? Okay, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the time first. Okay, I want 6 hours of hands-on clients a day, but that means it's like 9 hours a day. Okay, so the first question is that reasonable and sustainable for your business right now, right? And then, okay, now what other, like you said, if I have 6 hours of client stuff, I need this many hours of the back end stuff. What does that look like? I would rather you guys commit to less to start and be consistent with that than commit to too much and then feel like you're always falling behind or dropping the ball. Right? Okay, I love this question, Jean, right? And this is what I get into inside some of my programs is what do we do with that time? But the problem is I bet every single person here has taken a course or gone to a workshop, right? Or even gotten stuff from Tracy or Laura, right? Or even me, right? And you're like, oh my goodness, this is so amazing. This is going to help me build my business. And then if you don't make the time for it, it doesn't happen. So that's why we were focusing on making the time first, and then we can figure out, okay, what are we going to put inside of it to actually move the needle? Okay? Because that's where most people then, like get stuck, right? And it's a decision piece that comes first. And then, like you said, the sticking with it is, okay, what happens when life happens? And that's why I can't wait for us to come back in 2 weeks, those of you who are going to join us for the lock-it-in session, because you're going to have some life between now and then. And I want you to bring those things and be like, hey, Lissa, I set these hours. Here's what I did to try to protect them, and here's what happened. We're going to talk through that, you guys. That's the kind of this is not theory. Like, we need to go, how are we going to make this work and stick for you? So you don't feel like, oh yeah, I set some office hours somewhere, and then now they're just kind of, I don't even know where they are. Okay, we want to get to the last little section here. And then we'll be wrapping things up. Each day it's about an hour, but we did do a little bit of housekeeping, intro, stuff like that. So we may go a little bit past the top of the hour, but if you have to head out, make sure that you watch your inbox for the replay. Okay, so our last D is design. Here's where we're going to establish and protect those CEO operating hours. Right? It's one thing to make a decision. Now we actually have to get it down in a place where we can see it and where other people can see it. We'll talk about that in just a minute, to make sure that they're being protected, because the decision in your head doesn't change anything until it has a place in your calendar. Okay? So this is where we take that decision. This is the number of days and the number of hours, and we make it in a way that our brain can see it. I do not love digital calendars. When you start scrolling on your phone, you cannot see how things actually flow. You can just see one line after the next. So I am a huge fan of paper planners. In fact, I created a paper planner. So if you don't have one, I will make sure that I drop the link in the chat so you guys can get one, or I'll put it on the resource that's coming out today with the replay. It's undated, so you're not behind if you pick it up in April, and you can start it. But there's something about getting out of our head and down on paper where you can see it. It literally transforms things, because now you can see how things flow. So what I did really simply for this today, to make it fit on this workbook page, just in case you didn't have my planner, is I just gave you the Monday through Friday and then a weekend box underneath it. Here's where I want you to get it visual. Okay, that decision you just made up in step 3, the number of days and number of hours, I want you to actually write that in like you are putting those time blocks. I actually teach something called time anchors, but I'm not going to go into all that today. I'll do that in that guide that I'm sending you guys. I want you to lay out what your time blocks look like during your week. Now, just because there's a weekend spot there does not mean you have to put something there. Okay, I put that there for those of you who do need some weekend time to work on your business. And you can make it be a Saturday and a Sunday. That's why I put 2 different sides to it there. If you're not working Monday and Friday, then nothing should be going there. And so in there, for example, if you're going to work on Tuesday, you're like, okay, I'm doing 6 hours on Tuesday, then you might be like from 9 to 3. Right, is where I'm doing that. I want you to be able to visibly see it. I want you to be able to visibly see how your week flows. Okay, Annette said, okay, as if she does 6 hours of hands-on time, it means I start at 8 a.m. and done at 4:30. That's very doable. Okay, yeah, this is where I want you to start seeing, is this doable? Right, in what I'm going to send out to you today, you're going to start seeing how this fits in with the rest of your day. So right now we're just zeroing in on that CEO operating hours. But in the CEO day framework you're going to get today, we're going to zoom out to the other things that I know you're wanting to make time for in your day. Okay, so right now we're just zooming in. And I want you, even looking at that, I want you to go, how does this feel? Do I like the fact, do I need do I need a day in between? Some people like to do 2 days, have a break, 2 days. Some people are like, nope, I want to 3 days in a row and then have my bookends be open. So get it on paper, and then I just kind of start asking and how does this feel? This is going to be like your open for business sign, right? Where you're sticking this. Maybe even put a copy of this on your office door so that you can see it, and so can your family. We're talking about that in just a second. When are you going to actually be sitting down to that time? If you can put the start end times, I think that's even better. But if right now all you know is 5 hours on this day, it's okay. Just write 5 hours. And this is how your week actually starts to take shape, right? So you can actually see, when am I working and when am I not? For example, Fridays, I am not working. Those are my, what I call CEO days, but I actually make them like not business CEO days, like coffee with a friend, Bible study with some gals that I'm doing a study with this year, my appointments, my errands, my grocery shopping, like, like those kinds of things go in that day. So when I look at mine, I go, okay, Monday through Thursday, this is when, I'm in business mode during these hours. And then I keep Friday open. So you might want to think about, what would I want to do if I do have some open days here? Maybe weekends are family and you're like, I'm not touching my business on the weekends. Make some decisions ahead of time, because otherwise it's just going to keep creeping in. And you're just going to keep finding that you're either working, more of life creeps in and you work less hours than you need to, or way too much of working creeps in and you're working way more. There's a principle. My brain just all of a sudden blanked on it. Your work fills the time you give it. Is that Pareto's principle, or is that the other one? There were two in my head that I was just thinking through. But it's so true. If you give yourself all day to get something done, does it take you all day? What happens if you give yourself 2 hours? You're like, I'm sitting down, I'm doing nothing else, and this is all I'm focusing on. You could probably get it done in 2 hours. What would have taken you 5 hours if you were kind of here, there, and everywhere? So this is where we're going to start defining that. Because when it's not just on your head or on a to-do list, now it becomes something you can commit to. 1 day a week I offer into the evening sessions. Okay, yeah, and that's I love that you brought that up, Annette. That is something very good to think about. Do I need to offer some evening time? If so, right, pay attention to what evening am I offering? And then am I compensating in some way, like, I don't start till later in that day, or that I have another day that I'm off? Like, what does that look like, to make sure that I'm not burning the candle at both ends? That's a great thing to bring up and thinking about. Depending on what your business model is, who you're serving. Do I need maybe you do have to have some weekend hours, because some people that you're working with need some weekend time, or you need that time when you've got childcare that you can then actually get some stuff done. So maybe you do work more evenings and weekends because of that. So thinking through that. Okay, the evening issue and the early morning issue, I need to think about changing the office hours those days. Yeah, and again, I always say put stuff in pencil, because again, we're going to play with it and tweak it. This is going to be your assignment over the next 2 weeks, is like, okay, I've made some decisions. I've laid it out. Now I'm going to try it out and test it out, right? And we're going to see, how does this work? Okay, but here's going to be the key, because most people stop right here. It's on my calendar, right? It's on my planner, and we just expect it to happen, right? We have to get into mama bear mode. You guys know what mama bear mode is? Like protection, like the claws come out, and you're like, you do this. If like something's coming at your kid, you shoot, you're there, right? Here's the thing. This is where most women stop. They decide on their hours. They maybe even put them on the calendar, but they don't protect them. It's going to be at 1:00 on the 21st. And yes, it will be recorded if you can't join us live, but that one will be super valuable to be on live. There'll be a lot of interaction going on. Here's the thing. Unprotected time gets run over by something else. Unprotected time gets run over by something else, okay? If you want to plant a garden, you are probably going to, so my friend had to put like a fence around it because otherwise the squirrels were coming in and taking all of her stuff, and the deer kept coming in, right? So you put something around that, not because you're mean, but because you want to protect what's inside, that you want to have space and room to grow, right? Same thing has to happen with our time. If we don't put some healthy boundaries around it, then Bambi and Thumper and whoever are going to come in and run away with it, okay? So here's what protection looks like, okay? And we'll be wrapping this up. Number 1, protection starts with you. You, first of all, have to not only decide what this time looks like, when is it, but you have to decide that these hours matter. Okay? You have to decide this matters, and I am going to show up to it, and I know there's value to this. There's a reason. My CEOs and I do a book club, and we're about to start a brand new book called Healthy Calling. And she's talking about in the first couple of chapters, when we do something from a sense of calling, it's not like I'm motivated by a paycheck. That's what a job is. Not a bad thing. It's not a career where I'm motivated by advancement. A calling is, there's this deeper person. Number 1, there's a caller, right? The Lord has called me to this. He's equipped me for this. And then I'm seeing the community that I'm impacting with whatever this is, right? So especially if you feel the sense of calling around the work you do, like, okay, there's value there. So I need to protect it. But it always starts here first, of us making that decision, okay? And then us deciding, how am I going to make sure the Skittles don't creep into that time? How am I going to pay attention to those internal and external distractions that we started to start thinking about, right? Because if this time matters, right, I'm going to make sure that I'm protecting it. But it doesn't just stop with you. I'll get to your question in a second, Annette. Who else needs to know? Who else needs to know? If my friend who owns the boutique in town only knew in her head when she was going to be open, that would be a problem, right? So do your clients or customers need to know when you're open for business and when you're not, right? When are you answering emails or texts and when are you not? And don't feel bad about that, okay? I think we need to stop. Pet peeve, the sign on a door at a store that says, sorry, we're closed. You should not be saying, I'm sorry. Just say we're closed. You were out doing something else that's valuable with your time and caring for, yourself or your family or whatever else it is. So no more apologizing for not, responding in the minute that somebody sent you something. It's okay. Have your boundaries and then keep them, but you have to communicate them sometimes to clients or customers. Do you have a team? Do you have interns? Do you have a VA? Do you have, make sure they know what your hours are. I tell my interns, you're welcome to send me a message anytime you want, but I will not be answering it anytime you send it. So, here's when I am typically in office. And if there's an emergency, we have a way for them to get a hold of me so that I know this needs to happen in real time. But that's the exception, not the rule. How many of you feel like with your team or with your clients or customers, you're making exceptions all the time to be responding or reacting to their requests and things like that? I think way too many business owners are doing that. And then what about your family and friends? How many of you work from home and everybody just thinks you've got all the time in the world? They don't even really think you have a real job, so they can call you any time of day or ask you to do anything, because, you're at home. So how do you communicate that to them? How do you let them know, I am treating this like a business. This is not a hobby. I am doing this thing. And that means not only am I looking at what kind of money I invest in it, but I'm looking at the time I invest in it. So maybe you do have a sign that goes on your door. Remember at one point, my daughter made a recording sign that I would put on the outside of my door if it was recording a podcast. So that way everybody knew the door was closed, that sign was up, don't open it unless there's blood, right? And even then, can you wait for a few minutes until I hit stop? But again, based on the season of life you're in and who else is around you, right? Maybe you have a conversation with your husband or your parents if they live with you or whoever saying, hey, I'm going to be in my office today from this time to this time. Is there anything that you need from me before I go in there? Get preemptive so they're not just ringing, dinging, and pinging you when they think of something, right? Or with your kids, I know especially when the kids are younger. I mean, you've got grandkids, that are around more often or things like that. You're like, hey, grandma or mom's going to work until 4:00 and then we're going to go to the park. And while I'm doing that, here's what you can do, right? So that you still can value the relationship, whether it's with your family or your clients or your team, and still protect your time. Okay, you can do both, but you have to communicate that. If it's only in your head or only in your planner that nobody ever looks at, then it's not going to be honored, right? We teach people how to honor and respect our time or how to not. So I want you right now to be thinking about, okay, how can I do this? In fact, I'm going to have you write something down here in a minute, okay, as we're pulling this all together, right? Because this is what stewardship is all about. I am not just deciding something, I'm leading it and I'm protecting it because time is this valuable asset that I have. And I want to produce a good ROTI, return on time invested. And when we've cleared the clutter from our time, and when we have now put some definition around our time, and then we are protecting that time, now our focus is going to be increased. And our follow through is going to be happening consistently. And the results are going to be able to start going and growing because it's getting what it needs to actually move the needle. This is how you get a higher return on the time that you invest. Okay, so last little section here. Okay, as I want you to make some commitments. Okay, so last section on the workbook. Okay, this is about increasing the ROTI on that time. We're going to identify one priority and one protection. Okay, so the first one says one CEO priority this week. Okay, so you've already got what your hours are. What is one priority that you are going to put into one of those time blocks? Okay, what is one priority that you're like, this is something I know needs to happen? What is the priority? And I want you to get really specific. When am I going to do it this week? Okay, Emmy, yes. So Emmy has a lot of children, so she has to communicate to multiple people, and they're all different ages and stages. So here's where, Emmy, I think, just being preemptive with them and saying, hey, this is what mom's going to be working on for the next hour. So if you need something and you have older kids, go to Susie or, I don't know your kids' names, right? So let them know that. Or hey, if you see my laptop open, I am working on, Emmy is a writer. I am writing. And in order for me to write, I'm going to have to be able to stay focused. So maybe it's just where they visibly can see, oh, mom's got her laptop open. That means she's writing. That means that we are, so I think just communicating, having those conversations. Okay, I'm going to catch up with some things over here in the chat because Annette asked a question. What do I do? Well, we'll come back to that in a second. Okay. So one CEO priority for this week and when you're going to do it this week. And then if you don't already have it in your planner for this week, right now I want you to go write it in your planner. Where is this going to happen? Because it's one thing to put it on a to-do list and then just have this to-do list follow us around. It's another thing to actually schedule time for it. Okay? So that's your one priority. The second one is your one protection. What is one way that you're going to protect your CEO hours this week? Maybe it's I'm actually deciding what they are because maybe I haven't, and I haven't been sticking to it myself. Maybe it has nothing to do with anybody else. Maybe it's I'm going to set the things, whatever things on my phone for focus so that during these hours from 9 to 3, this thing doesn't do anything. So that way I'm not distracted by this thing and I can just work. So maybe it has to do with something digital. Or maybe it's that conversation you need to have with your husband or your parents or your friend or your kids or your grandkids. What is one thing you're going to do to start protecting these hours that you just identified? And then what I want you to do is to make it official. And I want you to sign it and date it April 6th, 2026. No more, I'll try to find the time, but this is how and when I operate as a CEO. And then, of course, like we talked about, the next step, and I love that some of you are already thinking this way, okay, then what do I do with that time? That's a good problem to have, right? Hey, Lisa, I've got 3 hours. What do I do with that? So we'll talk about that. That's the next step. But first, we're going to make sure we have the time there. We could have the whole to-do list and all the things to do, but if we don't have the time, it's not going to take us anywhere, and then be wasting all that time. Okay, whew! You guys just saw what was filling your time. You identified some skittles that were getting in the way. You made a decision about how much you're going to work and when, and you've actually laid it out so you can see what that looks like when it's actually going to happen. This is how you start to move from busyness, my day feels really full, to fruitfulness. I'm actually producing results. And like I said, tomorrow on day 2, we're going to be addressing one of those internal distractions, overthinking, right? And spiraling in that decision-making process, and then not actually moving forward with it. And then on Wednesday, day 3, we're going to tackle that one of those external distractions, your digital disorganization. So I want you to imagine how much more productive will you be if you are no longer letting your time get sucked up by all of these skittles and you're making time for the things that matter. And one of them should be your business and should be the CEO operating hours that we just put together. Do you think that you might be more productive? Do you think, remember our list of P's earlier, do you think you might be more profitable? Oh wow, I could actually, if I'm actually doing something consistently, I might actually make some money at this. I hope that's what you want. Or seeing that bigger purpose, right, really happening. Or not feeling so stressed all the time because you're not chasing the clock or, a to-do list, right? When we have those CEO operating hours and we protect them, that's how we start making sure that our time is going in that direction. Okay, as we're wrapping up here, right, we'll drop the link one more time to the Lock It In session because here's what a lot of people are like, listen, this is great when we're on paper and life happens, right? So I want you to pay attention. You're going to put these CEO operating hours in whatever planning system you have right now. If you don't have a Redeem Her Time planner yet, let me drop the link in there now. It's redeemhertime.com/planner. Sorry, I can't type and talk at the same time, so give me a second. So go ahead and drop it in there. We'll get you a planner. Okay, so once you get it somewhere visibly where you can see it, right? Even if you're just working off this sheet for now, that's okay, right? And then I want you to start actually using it. But I want you to notice where are the Skittles coming in? And what's a Skittle? I want you to notice where the distractions come in because that's what we're going to deal with or talk about when we get to that Lock It In session. Okay, so if we haven't dropped the link recently, good, we just dropped it in there. So make sure you guys have that, okay? All right. I would love to hear before you go, because we're going to start popping off here. Thanks for hanging on for a few extra minutes since we had a bunch of housekeeping in the beginning. What was an aha for you today? Or what was a commitment from today? Okay, either an aha, like, wow, okay, this kind of helped me see something that I hadn't seen before. Or maybe it's a commitment where this is going to help me do something that I haven't been doing before or I haven't been consistently doing before. Drop those in the chat. We'd love to hear. Or if you just want to unmute, I'd love to, hear your voices and things like that. We'd love to hear.
Yeah, I'll share real quick.
Go ahead, Rochelle.
Yes, the Skittles part, even though they were a short list, it seems to take more time away. So I was like, okay, there's only a few things, my phone, procrastination, putting things off, but it's only so short compared to my oranges. And if I were to switch my focus, then I would have so much more time for the oranges.
Interesting. Yeah, sometimes it's the little things, right? My Skittle is very small compared to my orange here. The little things can suck up way more time. Yeah, if we let them. So that's a good realization and starting to notice, is this a Skittle or an orange, and how much time is this taking? Love it. Anybody else want to unmute? Share either an aha or a commitment that I need to put boundaries in my time. Yes. Thinking in oranges and Skittles. Thinking about the conversations I need to have. Yes. Okay, yes, I want to come back to your thing, Annette. You're figuring out what to do in between clients on days when there's more space. Here's where, again, I want you guys to be thinking about this. And Annette, remember, has an in-person thing. So if she has a client at 2 and a client at 6, you're probably not driving home in between. So here's where I would go, Annette. What are some back end things that you can work on during that time in between? And intentionally, be like, okay, well, I know on Thursdays I'm going to have this couple of hours in between. The other thing you can do is, I used to give people from like all day they could block on my calendar, and then I would have all this random time right in between. And it's almost harder to get stuff done when you're in and out of meetings. And so what I try to do is I try to chunk my meetings a little bit more. So I don't know if that's something that you can do, at AllNet. That would be something to consider. On a day that I'm going to be open later in the evening, maybe I don't start appointments until 1 o'clock when I usually would open them up at 8 o'clock or something like that, just so you don't have so much of the dead time in between. So one of them is is there any way to see if I can kind of move them a little bit closer together? And the other thing would be to go, okay, if I know I'm going to have this big chunk of time, what is something that, since I'm kind of a captive audience in my, in your office, you're not going to be cleaning your house or doing laundry where you are. So how can I use that time? What are some things that are going to consistently need my time? I need to chuck them together. When I mention a time closer to another and it doesn't work for them, I don't want to lose them that day. Yes, and here's part of the thing, okay? Again, if somebody goes on my calendar, they're only going to see what I'm offering. I can always open up more time if I want. But if I give somebody my entire day, guess what? And every single day on my calendar, I would be in and out of meetings all the time. And then my brain is so I think start with, these are the hours that I'm available, and you can always make the exception in that if I want to open up something that is outside of those hours, that you can, if they're like, hey, I don't see something the next week, then you're like, hey, okay, well then let's look at this. Sure. And yeah, so again, but I would start with you control your time first. You decide when you want to be available. And if it seems like, if they really want to, then hopefully there's some way that you're connecting with them or having a conversation with them, even if it's not at the scheduling time. And maybe you can have that conversation. But yeah, nobody complains when their dentist is, closed on a certain day. You just make the appointment in the times they have open, people, we do this all the time. We have to figure it out. If they're not open, I can't say, well, I want my favorite store to be open at 7 o'clock on a Friday night. If she closes at 5, sorry, not sorry. I got to figure out how to get there when she's open. So maybe something to think about, some boundaries around that. Feels good to have a plan and hours to give my time. Yes. And start, decide yourself and start communicating that with the people who matter that are around you. Right? Because again, that's going to be important, and let them know the value of it. Right? Because again, a lot of times people around us, they don't see us punching a time clock. They don't realize what the value is of the time that we're doing. So how do we communicate that with them? To let them know that we are putting in that time and what we're focusing on. I need a better plan for work time so I don't get distracted. Yes. Yeah. And paying attention, Amy, to, okay, what is my work time? And especially because you've got kids at home with homeschooling, how do I clearly communicate that with them? And what am I giving them to do? What are their options while I'm working? And then thinking about, how do I make sure that when I am in that time, here's where you may not have to be working, 5 hours a day. If you had undistracted time, you might be able to shorten that down to 3 hours or 2.5 hours. Multitasking, did you know it takes up to 50% longer to get stuff done when you're multitasking? When you're task switching back and forth? Maybe just not multitasking is going to allow you to cut down the number of hours that you need to work. Okay? So we're going to start with, that smaller amount and start with working on the focus on there. Any other things in here that I've missed? Yeah, so maybe what I would do, Annette, is like, again, I would say, okay, if there's a day that I want to, like I want to kind of chunk it, maybe it's like I offer afternoon appointments 2 days a week and I offer morning appointments 2 days a week. So if they're an afternoon person, they can choose from one of these 2 days. And if they're a morning person, they can choose from one of these 2 days. Instead of you feeling like I have to offer morning and afternoon every day of the week. I would just kind of think about what I want that to look like. Like, I don't take any appointments on Mondays or Fridays. Now, does that mean I don't make exceptions? No, I sometimes do. But as a norm, those days are my, like I said, Fridays is my personal CEO time. Mondays is my work CEO time. I want to get into some of the deeper work stuff that I need to do before my week gets going. Yeah. And again, you're always going to be trying and testing in that, right? And anybody else who's thinking through this, right? Like, what feels like it's going to work in this season, and then let's put it into real life and see how it actually works, right? But pay attention to, have I actually made the decision? Have I decided that it matters? And have I communicated this to the people that need to know? Go there first before you decide it doesn't work. Okay. And then, yes, maybe you wanted to work 20 hours a week, but really right now, 12 hours is what is reasonable and sustainable. Okay. What can you do with 12 hours? That's way easier than trying to chase people interrupting your time all day long or all the other things. All right. Well, hopefully this has been valuable for you guys. I will get the replay uploaded and into your inboxes, hopefully within the hour. So be watching over there. The CEO Day Framework is your free resource. That is my gift to you guys today. So that will be coming in there. It's a direct download. You don't have to opt into anything. Okay. So don't worry. It's all going to be in one place. You're going to click one button and you've got it right there. Tomorrow, you're going to get a special bonus tool from Laura. And then on Wednesday, you'll get a special one coming from Tracy. Okay. We just want to make sure to kind of give you some extra tools for those of you who want to go a little bit deeper. But hopefully we've given you enough to chew on today. Come over into the Redeem Her Time community where we can share those ahas, share those wins, right? Like if you have a conversation with yourself or somebody else around business hours, come and celebrate it with us. Like that's huge, right? If we need to be doing that, especially if, you've seen how kind of everyone and everything is just, you've had great intentions, but it just feels like everybody's just trampling right through that space. Then we need to start making some decisions, having some conversations. So yes. All right. Well, so glad you guys joined us. Here's the thing, you guys. Guess what? People can still join us for the next 2 days and they can catch up on today's replay. So if you've been sitting here today going, gosh, I think so-and-so really needs this, send her the link, redeemhertime.com/reset. She can still get in and register. She'll get the replay from today, and then she can join us for the next 2 days. Okay. So as you're thinking about people or as you're like sharing with somebody, oh my goodness, this is so helpful to actually make a decision around when my work time is, or to like start recognizing my oranges and Skittles. Who needs to hear it? Okay. Any other questions or like something that's on your heart or mind that you got to get out before you go? I want you going out of here feeling like I have time and I know when it's time to work and when it's not. And even though you could be working all day does not mean you should be. Okay. So for those of you who are in a season where like, I don't have a lot of other things that I have to do, I think even more so, we need to put some healthy boundaries around it because we need unplugged time too. So, all right. Well, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for being here today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.